There is no one-size-fits-all or a simple fix when it comes to your well-being. Hi, my name is Josephine, founder of Positivity Center and Wellbeing Consultant, and a person figuring out how to be my best. So join me in conversation with friends, sharing what works for them, and then listen to what works for others so you can create something that will work for you. So hello and welcome to the show. I am joined here by my friend Matthew Biggar, and I am your host, Josephine, and welcome. We're glad to have you and you, Matthew.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm so glad you could join us. And maybe perhaps before we start the conversation, I would just love like a moment for you to introduce yourselves to the viewers, like a little bit about you and what you do and who you are.
Cool. I always love to lead with a bit of a quick story because
Awesome.
I feel like it's a great way to, convey a lot of information quickly in a way that, people they get it. So I was working a job like a really long time ago, like over a decade now, as an electrician. And I remember that first day on my job site of really just feeling not only overwhelmed, but also that I'd made a mistake because everyone I was working with just seemed to be miserable. And they expanded the job site. There was like 300 electricians working on there. There was multiple journeymen. And I saw this as a common theme. It's like, it didn't really seem like people were loving that kind of work. And so I went down that road for a while, but I had it in the back of my mind the whole time, like, this is not fulfilling for me. This isn't really what I was put here to do. And so that became something that I just couldn't ignore. And so I quit that job without any kind of plan or strategy because I read a book by Robert Kiyosaki, Increasing Your Financial IQ, because I was making good money as an electrician and I was broke because I was spending all my money and I knew that I had to work on my mindset around money. I just wasn't really sure, right? So it opened up this entrepreneurial door to the business world that I didn't even know existed. And that led me down the path of, being the kind of guy that would just put his hand up and say, I'll help you with this. And there was a job post online for a videographer position for a foot clinic. And I didn't have any experience or any gear. All I did was put my hand up and say, yes, I will help you guys. And so we negotiated and they actually sent me a check to go buy the equipment. In exchange, I would work that off by creating interview content. And so that's how I got started with video. And honestly, and I know what it's like for a lot of people, as soon as you open some kind of video editing software, it's like really intimidating. You're like, oh, what am I getting myself into? This is a tremendous waste of time. Right. So, but I pushed through those challenges. I kept going. And eventually I would leave my career. In 2017, I decided to go full time on videography and quickly discovered that I was being this hypocrite evangelist for video. I was telling everybody else, you got to make videos for your business. Like, this doesn't make sense for you to not do that. But I was also hiding behind the camera because I was afraid of judgment. And so I decided to, I really value servant leadership. It was Jim Collins' Good to Great. His book changed my perspective on a lot of different things. And so I decided to lead by example. I shut down that production business and went full time on YouTube, again, with no plan. Like, how was I going to make money? I didn't even know. Thank goodness I have a wife to support me, and she's been very patient and supportive along this journey. I couldn't have done it without her because, it was foolish to like completely leave, sources of income behind. And then I think the strategy was like, I thought that if I put so much pressure on myself that I would just end up being so motivated that I would take so much action that I was going to make money anyways as a result. It doesn't work very well. But the point is I started YouTube on October 25th of 2019 and I never looked back. Like, I absolutely love it now. I was really reserved and, feeling that sense of self-judgment, fear of judgment from others. Every time I go and edit a video and post it online, it was like a little nerve-wracking. I'm sure some people can relate to that message. But the point is I went forward anyway, persisted, I was patient, and now I help other people grow their YouTube channels and align it with their business and help them grow a community through those three things. And that's what I call getting to the campfire. So that's a little bit of the background story.
There's so many things in there. My gosh. I mean, you took a leap of faith, like a crazy risk, which many of us are scared to do. We often convince ourselves of the reasons why we shouldn't do something instead of like, this is the reason why I can do this.
Yeah.
So, and does that impact how you, I guess, define or maybe live out, that well-being sort of word in your life? How do you incorporate that language? Because it seems to me, by listening to that story, that there's almost like this element of, that's the philosophy I live by.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wasn't fulfilled in my job, so I wasn't going to continue to live that way. Right.
Yeah.
It was something more for me. I was designed for more. I was called for more. Like that. Am I hearing what, or I'm just making this up,
No, you got it. You nailed it. And in fact, that's the driving force behind everything that I do now, because I can't stand to see people doing that, where it's like, even whether they're making great money or not, but they're stuck in a job or a career or even a business that isn't fulfilling for them. And because I really do believe that the way that we show up, it resonates out. We're putting an energy out there into the world. Everyone who we're surrounded by, friends, family, even strangers, can feel that energy. And when you show up from a place of fulfillment and happiness in your work, then people pick up on that too. And it has a positive impact on the world around us. And so that's why I'm really passionate about, helping people find fulfillment in their work. I think that's so critical. It's completely overlooked. And we had some really screwed up ideas about, as a society, especially in North America over the last like 20, 30 years, just look at the old idea of like what the American dream was. And, like I got to keep up with the Joneses. Like these ideas are just, they're ass backwards.
Yeah.
Pardon my language, but
no, it's okay. So there must have been some challenges along the way, because, oftentimes the well-being conversation, and you're sharing a very high level overview of what happened to you. And it's like, amazing. and you did it. And along the way there were there challenges? Like, can you share a little bit about that? Because it's not always rosy. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. And this does tie into well-being. Because, like I mentioned that Robert Kiyosaki book in the beginning, that opened the door to becoming a personal development junkie, essentially, right? Buying courses, reading tons of books, trying all these different things out. And I've been around the block in terms of that stuff, but there was something that was missing for me. And I didn't understand for a very long time the importance of self-care and well-being, and in making investments into that so that you can be more effective, so that you can show up, so that you have the ability to, do the things that you want to do with your life and achieve the vision that you have for your whatever it is that you're working on. And so I didn't really do any meditation. I didn't have any practices. And I know that definitely held me back for a really long time. I kind of floundered about for a decade. That book was like, that's 13 years ago when I picked that book up. And so that's when I kind of start the journey of going through all this stuff. And I had very confusing messaging. I was frustrated with my inability to create recurring income in my business. It was always one-off projects, and I was always scrambling, frustrated because I'm not a very good salesperson. That was one of the pieces of advice I took from Kiyosaki, was to go and get a job in sales. And I did cell phones, but I was always there like supporting people instead of like trying to push phones out the door. Right. So yes, I can definitely dig deeper into specific topics, but I would say the big shift for me, when I started to feel more productive, more clear, and moving down a specific path instead of, shiny objects getting pulled in many different paths and just getting lost and confused, I really did start to feel a lot more clear after I started a meditation practice. And so I use the Headspace app. I've been using it I just actually hit 1,000 days in a row run streak, because it keeps track of how many days consecutively you use the app.
Yeah.
So that it's kind of fun to share that, right? I celebrate that, because meditation has helped me in so many ways. And that's one thing I love about that app, is you can look up an issue that you're having specifically,
Yeah.
and then there's a course for it inside of the application, right? So if I want to focus better, I can use meditation to do that.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. So that's
Yeah.
a big one. And then the second thing that I started to do, and this is not perfect, I don't do this every single day. I try to as much as possible, but I do at least 5 to 30 minutes of Qigong, which is breathing, moving meditation. So you really kind of, it's like breathing meditation, but you're also doing movements, and you're paying a lot of attention to the energy inside of your body and directing it. That I didn't really buy into it in the beginning. I was like, okay, what is this? I'd try it out, right? But now I'm a big advocate for it because it has had such a positive impact on me, for sure.
So has it always been a part of you? Because earlier you said, you just said yes to the video work, like moving from being an electrician to video. And then also here, you're like, I don't really think I'm going to buy this, but I'm going to try it anyways. Has that always been a part of you, that you're willing to do something that you think's not really you, but you're just kind of open to just seeing maybe perhaps it'll work?
Yeah, I don't think I would identify as a person who is rigid in beliefs and not trying new things. I moved around a lot when I was a kid. Like I went to a lot of different schools. And so I was always kind of like this outside kid that was trying to fit in with the other kids, right? So that was hard, but it also made me resilient. And, I can sort of understand what other people are going through. So I've developed this, empathy, because I was always trying to figure everybody else out because I wasn't the one to fit in with the group, right? So I would say, yes, I have for most of my life been open-minded about trying new things. And especially now more than ever, I look for alignment first. I talk about the concept of, intentional congruence and creating alignment in your life in all aspects. Yeah. So that gives me that compass for the true north. If something feels like it's going to pull me in a different direction, or it's just not moving in the right way, then I'll eliminate it, or I'll just say no.
Yep.
And so that really helps. But I'm open-minded to new things as long as it's congruent.
So it's something that'll help you get where you're going, because you know where your true north is and you know where you're headed. And if it can align to go that way, it could work possibly. I mean, and it sometimes is a trial and error, right?
Yes, for sure.
Has there been anything that you've tried that didn't work for you and you're like, I'm not doing that one again?
I think the biggest thing is honestly value alignment with the people that I work with. I had to get really clear on my own values so that I could understand, more of who I am. And instead, like in previous messaging, branding efforts, marketing efforts, I would try to filter people out. And you do see this a lot. There's, the purpose-driven creators, or they're just using language around like, this is specifically for coaches or whatever. Like I did all that stuff, purpose-driven coaches. And then I just took a step back and I said, you know what? I know what my values are. I don't need to filter clients out. I'll know whether there's value alignment or not by having a conversation with them. And if there isn't, it's the right timing for them, then potentially we could work together. It's just it's such a more open-handed approach to it.
Yeah.
But I have worked with clients that didn't align in values, and it just didn't work out. So.
Yeah. So knowing your values not only helps you align your life with where you want to go and what you're doing to get there, but it also helps you align with the right people.
Yeah.
And I'm not meaning, I don't say right people to say like some are right, some are wrong, not like that, but just to mean people that are aligned with you. I don't mean to say that someone's better.
Yeah, no, and that's totally fine. I think that like, it's not about, good, better, or best, or superiority or anything like that. It's really about whether we value the same things or not. One of my primary values is growth. Another is community. These are just, part of who I am. And so, if I found a client that wanted to pay me every month for 6 months on my YouTube program, then, and they didn't value like growth and they were just after subscribers, like I'd get messages like that once in a while. Can you help my client grow their channel to 50,000 subscribers? And I'm like, no, sorry, can't do that. There's no value alignment there.
Right.
because that's a vanity metric, right? It's a
Yes.
performance indicator, but it's not the emphasis of the strategy
So true.
that I feel is what
Yeah.
is in alignment with, a thriving business and YouTube channel.
Absolutely. I'm hearing a lot from just some bigger names out there, like the Tony Robbins. I know there's a guy, Stephen Trijek, who wrote Compassionomics, and they're all about give more. Like if you're a business leader, you just it's all about giving. So like when you talk about growth and community, there is yourself involved. I get it. We're not going to like forget ourselves and sabotage ourselves because then we'll have nothing to give. But it is about giving to a community, whatever that community looks like for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. One of the other things you brought up earlier that I really want to touch on, because I think everyone has had to deal with this, is that judgment, that self-judgment you said. Because that's a well-being thing, and it can hinder us, right? It can really be a sabotaging thing. So maybe share a little bit, like highlight a little bit more of, what was it like to experience that judgment? And then what was your journey like to actually move through that and come to that acceptance place for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually bought a course specifically for video confidence. And because that was the challenge I was going through at the time, I felt like that was going to be my first product. It's like, okay, I'm going to overcome this. I'm going to push through this. And then I'm going to also make a course on video confidence. And then I thought that was my whole business for a little while. That I was just going to focus on.
I found you, because I was just getting into the camera world, and I was just like, oh my gosh, everyone there is behind the camera, making sure the light's good, the sound's good, your makeup's good, your hair is good, da da da. And I'm like, and the inside of me, who's helping that? Because sometimes I feel like I got it all, and sometimes I feel like, who am I, right? The imposter syndrome. So
yeah. And that's the big one. And it comes up. It doesn't ever really fully go away. I believe that, honestly. I think that you have to be open to the idea that it's going to be work over time, rather than, it's one and done. All of a sudden, I have video confidence now, I can get on camera, but then I'll go and shoot a video and try editing it. And I'm like, I don't like the way I look. I don't like how I said that. I don't like the way I sound. And I'm judging myself during my own edit. Right. And so you can cut things out if you want to, but it can get really artificial. So you got to kind of leave those imperfections in. And the thing that I actually discovered was, that fear of judgment was really just because I was judging myself, and it was unfounded. I've never had someone actually troll me, not yet anyways, in my content. And I think the other part is we hold back on expressing our beliefs and our personality because we're worried that people aren't going to accept us. And the truth is that you got to let that crap go, because by stepping into those beliefs and sharing your personality openly, that's where you start to attract people that really care about your message. And even if you do get trolls, it doesn't matter, because if you're growing a community, people are going to stand up for you.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing can work really well on social media. I'm not saying it's like a tactic you should explore, but I think that it is important. And everyone talks about authenticity, but this is what, in essence, of what it really means.
Yep.
Right? Just put your personality into your content and explore that. It's not like you're going to do it once and then you're good again, right? So I've tried a lot of different things. I started to put a little bit more of my humor in there.
Yeah.
Right. It took time for me to do that. It wasn't like I'm 100+ videos on YouTube now. And you can see a progression in someone that was like this, kind of rigid. And you can see that on almost anyone's YouTube channel. Yeah. If they're on camera, you can go and sort by their oldest content on their channel and go and look at the oldest ones.
Yeah.
And there's someone who's not as well developed in their messaging. So that's the message I want to leave people with on this topic, is like, you really just have to take action and start making the content, because it's like a personal development accelerator. Yeah. You really get to work through a lot of stuff when you're making video content. It brings you more clarity. It helps build your confidence over time. And it's so worth it. It's just, it's fun once you get to that place. And it wasn't for me in the beginning.
Well, I can so resonate, because that's one of the things I'm like, I'm really not ready to do this, but I'm going to be ready enough, first of all. And that doesn't mean that because one of the things with self-acceptance, I think that can be kind of, everything's got its plus and its minus. So one of the minuses of that self-acceptance piece is like, everything's good enough and I'm never going to improve, right? Like, but it's accepted, and then yes, grow from it, move from it, like get better. And so I'm still looking forward to looking at my 100th episode someday, comparing it to where I came from on episode number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And for me right now, it seems to really shift depending on who I'm talking to. So I'm still finding me, right? Like if I feel comfortable, like I feel so comfortable talking to you, I feel like I'm just having a conversation. And with others, that's like, oh no, I got to ask this question. I got to make sure I ask this question. And it just seems more structured and less natural, if you will. Yeah. So I'm so aware of that. And I think it's just me deciding who's me that's going to show up, right? Like, what is that me part? And also knowing, like, I really like how you say, I didn't get to overcome judgment of myself and get to self-acceptance. And I'm like, yeah, I'm here, I've arrived. It's not like that. It's ever changing and always happening and going up and down. So
it can become easier.
Yes.
That is part of it.
Yeah.
But it's just like you build up the tools to deal with it quicker.
Yeah. Yeah. And so maybe that's a really good way to like finalize this episode. What might be tools that you've learned along the way to help people with that self-judgment?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
You have to get out of your own head. There's only a few ways to really do this that I know that work well for me personally. That's pen to paper. Journaling helps. I don't do it on a regular basis. Meditation definitely has a tremendous impact on every aspect of your life. So if you're not meditating, I highly recommend considering it. Open your mind to it because it can be life-changing. I think the other piece is support. Like the reason why I'm able to move confidently forward in some of the stuff that I'm doing, some of these things, these changes, because by the way, I took like 3 months off almost of making YouTube videos this year to revamp my strategy. But the reason I was able to do that is because I had support from other people who are in, the trenches with me, who are going along that journey. So if you're doing things by yourself, no matter what you're doing, you should find a community of other people with, common ground, passions that you have, because being a part of something else and seeing how other people are struggling really helps so much. You're not alone and you can't do this stuff alone. So I would say that's the biggest thing. The biggest piece of advice, whether you're open to meditation and all these other things or not, journaling, community and getting support is key. I also have a biweekly mastermind, which I facilitate. And that's every single week, everyone comes away with so many insights. And the feedback that we always hear from each other is, wow, I didn't know that you were struggling with that too. Right. So having the support, I think is overlooked and undervalued. And it's probably one of the things that can hold you back from being successful in your career, your job, whatever it is you're working on. And it can also prevent you from reaching that state of fulfillment that we talked about earlier on.
Oh, I love it. And I think it's so true. And it's also part of the reason why I started the show, because I knew there was kind of this sense of community lacking in my own life. And I'm like, I gotta talk to people. I know people who know this stuff, who implement this stuff, or they're figuring it out themselves, and we can figure it out together, like however that looks. And that's been awesome, because not only do I get to have the conversation with you, I get to re-listen to it when I do the post-production. So then I get to just feel that it really is a sense of joy. Like every single time, it's just been a sense of joy. It brings out creativity because I'm listening to it from a different angle to think, what are we going to call it? And how am I going to describe it? I love it. So yeah, community, hands down, it's where it's at. It's a huge resource, and one that when we get in those languishing places, we don't notice. So important to have and to be open and vulnerable in them, because I find that as long as we're open enough to share what's going on, then somebody knows how to meet us in those darker places. And then we never end up staying, and then because they are reality bites, and you're going to fall into those places. You're going to languish from time to time. It's just the staying in there that's the dangerous part. So, well,
there's
thank you.
There's something I want to touch on really quickly, because you said something that's really important. there are going to be things in your life that energize you and de-energize you. And by paying specific attention to those moments when you feel fired up and excited and you feel energized from an activity that you've done, that's where your sweet spot is. That's your true north. That's your compass. That's how you find alignment and congruence, is paying really close attention to the stuff that energizes you.
Agreed. I love using the strengths profile for that. What do you use for that? Just kind of a noticing thing?
I have to pay attention
Yeah.
day to day, right?
Yeah.
I know where, and it's a constant evolution of, paying attention to what activities do I feel tired afterwards? Do I feel more energized? Things like that. And then just being, intentional with the use of time. I still have to make content, and that takes up a tremendous amount of energy. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing it, but I also love doing it at the same time. So it does bring some, more creativity and energy.
Yeah, so true. Well, then I hope for anyone who's listening today that they just take the rest of their day, however many hours are left, and just notice what brings them up and what fires them up. And then they can create some ways to make that happen more often.
Yes. Perfect.
Thank you so much, Matthew. It's been a treasure and a joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Wellbeing That Works. Before you go, take 1 minute to write down your takeaway from today's guest. And be sure to download our Wellbeing Evaluation Sheet to help you along your wellbeing journey. And if you've got something to share to inspire others, be sure to be a guest on our show. Until next time, with love and kindness. So I just thought, well, if I just put these recordings out there, these conversations about well-being, then someone will just see like who I am, how I show up to be, right, in this life and in this business. And then you really get to showcase, because I don't talk a lot. It's really about everybody else. Like, what works for you? Like, let's talk about that. I really want to talk about what works for people, because one of the things that I noticed is that in the self-help industry, we can really get stuck on this works, you need to do it this way. This is a 7-step system. Don't miss out this step, or you're not gonna get it. Yeah. And I really just kind of want to dispel that as a myth and just say, it's okay. Like, what works for you? And sometimes I've had conversations about what doesn't work, because that's also part of finding out what works.